And then meantime, helping other people. Okay, now this is fifth way.
No.
This is an important point for our students. Your Holiness, you have said that leaders need to use their brain and their heart, to use their brain to look at science and research, and their heart so that they can love others and lift each other up, to use science so that we can love each other better. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Thank you. The next question comes from Sultan Bryce. Sultan.
Your Holiness, thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Sultan Bryce from North Carolina in the United States. We learn here at the Harvard Business School that the job of business leaders is to create opportunities for others. Do you agree with this? What do you believe is the most important job for business leaders?
Again, the business in human society. So whether your business work successful or not depend on neighboring people's sort of attitude. Every people, you see, trust you and find useful, then your own sort of business also will be successful. So every human work in the human community, so everything, whether religious sort of teaching or anything, you see, whether successful or not, depend on the rest of the community. So, yes, business work also, you see, depend on the community. And now, international level, big company also, you see, whether they are successful or not, depend on worldwide sort of what's the sort of admiration or trust or like that.
It's a wonderful question. Thank you for this answer, that success in business depends on others. So the job of business leaders is to lift other people up. The next question comes from Kathy Yu.
Thank you so much for having us, Your Holiness. My name is Kathy Yu, and I'm from San Francisco, California in the United States. My question to you is, what happens to people and their happiness when they don't feel useful to a society? Do you think not feeling useful lies behind the growing political and social divide in many countries?
That's quite a complicated sort of question. 지소로 반도 지도의 민도 냠바데 제거 망부는 칩시기 랑소다 지소 편중과 미침배 왕게 the problem which we human society facing I think depend on many factors. Since our society itself very complicated sort of society. But I feel ultimately the education give us the sense of oneness of human brothers, sisters, where we live, and think more on the well-being of the society and long run. That's, I think, main factor. Then, otherwise, you see, the different sort of society, different system, and different sort of leaders. There are some different also the conflict. And then among such sort of situation, then things are complicated, difficult. That's my feeling.
Thank you, Your Holiness. The next question comes from Yogi Kurniawan. Yogi.
Your Holiness, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Yogi Kurniawan and I am from Indonesia. My question is about prosperity. Traditionally, people are happy from simple things, but now people are chasing to grow their personal wealth. What is the effect of this on happiness?
It is quite clear. The real sort of happiness related with mind, emotion. So, materially, even poor, they mentally can be very happy. Then some nowadays more businessmen or more also the rich people, it's the facility of sort of also their life, plenty, but inner mind, mental level, discontent, and too much sense of competition, always want more, discontent. So then, the physical level seems to be very good, but mental level always worry, distrust, and fear, and that eventually create anger. So, such case, the person will not be happy one, full of anger, full of sort of jealousy, like that, distrust. So now, the very important is our life, materialistic life, but we should not neglect some teaching, some knowledge about our emotion, how to keep emotion level peace. For that, what kind of emotion is peace, helpful to maintain. Some emotion very harmful. So we need, you see, knowledge about map of emotion. That's very important.
Your Holiness, one time I asked you to tell me the meaning of wealth. You were teaching me one time about the idea that wealth can bring happiness, and I found that very surprising. I said, how can it be that in Tibetan Buddhism, that the Dalai Lama would teach that wealth can bring happiness? And what you taught me is that wealth does not mean the accumulation of money, and that wealth does not mean having a lot of possessions. You told me that to be wealthy is to be able to build something with your life and to be able to share abundantly with other people. Can you talk about this definition of wealth a little bit?
Oh yes, the contentment, mental level, is the key thing. The like some sort of ancient, the great practitioner remain mountain, nothing. One day, Milarewa, so one day he in his empty cave, one thief come. So try to find something. Then Milarewa laughed. Here, when I try to find something in daytime, nothing find. So now you in night, impossible to find something. So you see, the Milarepa himself, you see, like beggar, in mental level, of course, you see, I think a thorough training about mental level, how to develop peace, and other sort of practice. So he really feel mental level, he very rich. So you see, he very happy in mountain. Like that, I think actually the mental level is full of knowledge about mind, about emotion, then how to control these destructive emotion. For that, try to, now for example, anger is worst kind of enemy. The antidote of that, compassion. Not just a prayer, but practice compassion, then automatically anger reduce. So we need more knowledge how to tackle our mind, our emotion, and how to promote positive, constructive emotion. And so long constructive emotion increase, then automatically destructive emotion reduce. So the important is whether you believe in next life or God, that in order to be day-to-day happy person, the more knowledge about our emotion, how to maintain our peace of mind. Like that, right?
For our students who are watching and people around the world, His Holiness has just referred to Milarepa, the 15th century Tibetan Buddhist master. This is somebody whose teachings are very important that all of us can learn a great deal from. The next question comes from Rachel Draper. Rachel.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Your Holiness. I'm Rachel Draper from England. My question to you, have you observed differences in spirituality and exploration in more recent generations of young people? What advice would you give to us?
Now, of course, one of my commitment is promotion of religious harmony. So I respect all different religious traditions, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Jainism, so on. And within Buddhism, the Pali tradition not much use logical approach. What Buddha says, yes, yes, faith. Then Sanskrit tradition much depend on reasoning. So therefore, the Sanskrit tradition and Nalanda tradition, even Buddha's own word, we investigate. If you see Buddha's own word, through investigation, some difficult to accept or contradiction, then we reject. Like the great master of Nalanda, like Nagarjuna, and what's the daughter? Chandrakirti. So these great master, you see, always you see reasoning, investigation, not faith. So I remember Chandrakirti's one verses. So certain philosophy, complicated philosophy, the previous master who find it difficult to sort of understand these complicated, different sort of also different level of philosophy. He show they are sort of great, famous, also the Buddhist master, but you see, since they are analytical sort of thinking, not that much smart, so he abandoned this master's feeling. So the Nalanda tradition, even you see great Buddhist master, you see, sometimes they reject. So that's good. So always is reasoning. So therefore, now, my own case, last few decades, I have serious discussion with scientists. You see, since we are not based on faith, but analytical meditation, analyze. So, with discussion with scientists, very helpful. Sometimes you see, some Buddhist concept through centuries, you see, believe, like you see, Mount Meru, and the sun and the moon, same size, gone. So you see, we must be realistic, sort of analyze. So with scientists, we also, you see, sometimes, in some extent, you see, some useful sort of information. But at mental level, modern science, just the beginning, now more research work about brain, about mind. Otherwise, you see, science mainly also toward material thing. Now, a modern scientist now thinking more about our brain with that mind emotion. So now, you see, we can work together with the modern scientist. Very helpful. Many scientists really appreciate when we exchange different views and also the argument like that. So there's no problem. As far as Nalanda tradition, the Buddhist tradition, particularly Nalanda tradition, always investigate. So young student who always want to investigate, no problem. So when we carry investigation, our basic mind should be very neutral, very objectively investigate. If we sort of little bit biased, then you see the investigation not be proper, completely neutral, and investigate. So that's Nalanda Masters, I think the way of sort of investigation. Here you see the logical approach, very important. Now Nalanda tradition, very much sort of based, very much because of the emphasis, logical approach. So now here in Chinese Buddhism, emphasis more on meditation. In Tibet case, since 8th century, the Tibetan emperor invited Nalanda master, at that time one of the top Nalanda master. He himself, logician. His writing about logic, still we study. So we trained always why. We never say yes. So that's very useful. So, you see, we easily can discuss with modern scientists. They also, you see, raise always why. We also always raise why.
For our audience, His Holiness in his monastery, he has a sign on the wall, which is a quote from the Lord Buddha that says, "Don't accept my words, work to understand yourself," which is the point that His Holiness is making right now. That when we talk about happiness, for example, it's not a question of a feeling. It's not just faith. It's also a question of using our brains, using our logic, so that our hearts can be oriented in the right direction. Your Holiness, I have one more question for you before we finish and before we summarize and before we say goodbye today. And that question is really for our students. Our students are just starting out their careers. Now, at the Harvard Business School, we have wonderful students who go to lead big companies and to have important leadership positions. But that doesn't mean that they're going to be happy. What advice can you give to them right now that will make it easier for them when they get older to be happy leaders who bring more happiness to other people?
Oh, now I think basically I want to mention the since you see we must base on logical approach, so we should look many different places, field. Now one example, animal, no sort of sophisticated mind. So simply their food, okay, there no immediate threat, then feel peace, happy. Now since we human being, a lot of a complicated mind, with that, a lot of desire, there's a lot of doubt. So more, more problem. So actually, the happiness and sadness ultimately depend on our own mind. So now, it is wrong. We cannot say, since these sophisticated mind create a lot of problem, so without much thinking, just meditate, that also wrong. We have to sort of utilize fully about our mind. Then, so now, since we not like other animal, there's a lot of sort of problem. Actually, our own mental creation. So now study fuller knowledge about mind, about a system of emotion. That is important. We should not consider these are mentioned from religious text, but we should consider these are academic subject. So you see, whether believe religion or not, simply you see the complicated mind here. So it is important to know about knowledge, about sort of explanation about emotion, about mind from religious text, particularly Buddhist text. You see, useful. So, we human being, unlike other animal, there are a lot of problem created by mind, human mind itself. So the remedy or remedy. Also, you see, within the human mind. So investigate. So now here, the quantum physics, very useful. One my Indian friend, Raja Ramana, he once told me the quantum physics in the West, something new. In India, over 2,000 years, that concept already developed. It is true. So mainly, according my limited knowledge about quantum physics, you see, there is big differences, appearance and reality. Most of destructive emotion based on appearances. Appearance, some good thing appears something positive, attachment. Some sort of negative, unfriendly things appears, too much fear, too much suspicion, and anger. That creates anger. So all depend on superficial appearances. When you face some sort of like enemy, very negative, but deeper level, what is enemy? Do you feel angry? That enemy is physical, enemy is mind? Or investigate enemy is emotion. Enemy is emotion, one day, one emotion, another day, different emotion, just like me. So we cannot say definite, this is enemy, something mentally, something very negative. Never. So mind always moving. So like that, through investigation, there is no independent enemy or negative. Similarly, sort of friend to develop attachment. So the quantum physics really really help to know nothing independently exists as appears, always change. Deeper level, now for example, human level, deeper level, all are human beings. Today is your worst kind of enemy, human being, not from the birth, but later, due to certain sort of factor, you see, we develop one negative feeling. Now today, we feel, oh, this is my enemy. Similarly, the friend from the birth, not necessarily. We do not know. They eventually, you see, some become your friend, and then too much attachment. So these all are on the basis of appearance, and limited are because of the or judge, like that. So the quantum physics, you see, there is big differences, appearance and reality. So that's Buddhist psychology, Nalendra's tradition, psychology. Also it's similar, big differences, appearance and reality. So like that. So these are very useful. And all our mind sophisticated, the negative, destructive emotion also quite sophisticated, but similarly our mind very, very sophisticated to investigate deeper level, then the basis of attachment, basis of anger, no independent existence as appears. So now here these things, as I already mentioned, we should need more knowledge about the whole system of mind, and then differences, appearance, and reality. Like that.
Thank you, Your Holiness. We're almost at the end of our program, and I want to take one short minute to summarize what I believe His Holiness has taught us here tonight in Boston, in the morning in India, and different places around the world. The main theme of His Holiness tonight is that happiness comes from love for others. And he's made this point in 4 important ways. He's made the same point in 4 ways. The first is he taught us tonight that happiness comes from being useful and having a life's purpose. And that purpose, the purpose that we have, our highest purpose is caring for each other, lifting each other up, remembering that each of us is one of 7 billion human beings. The second way that he made this point is when he talked about unhappiness, which is our own creation. Unhappiness comes in our own mind because of self-centeredness. We become unhappy because we're unnatural, and we are unnatural when we're thinking only of ourselves. We can only be truly happy when we get out of this creation that is unhappiness by focusing on other people. The third point that he made was about our intellectual lives, about research and investigation, about our brains, and the importance of sanctifying our intellectual work by putting it in service of our hearts, putting it in service of our love for other people. That in fact, our hearts can be most effective when our brains are fully engaged in the purpose, sanctifying that purpose and loving each other. And finally, the fourth way that His Holiness made this point, that love comes from happiness comes from love for others, is that we need education, that we need an education system that teaches each of us unity and oneness and sisterhood and brotherhood. And that is our leadership challenge. That is our leadership challenge at the Harvard Business School and at Harvard University. That is the last note for this program tonight. At Harvard University and at the Harvard Business School, we have a mission to improve the world. So for all the people watching today, I hope we have achieved this with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I hope that this conversation has lifted all of you up around the world and made you better prepared to be the kind of leader who lifts other people up as well. We are so deeply honored to have spent this time with His Holiness. He has inspired us to be our best selves, and for this we are very grateful. So Your Holiness, on behalf of the students that you have touched today and our university and everyone watching, Thug Cheche, thank you very much.
두지체. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope I see you very soon in person.
Yes, thank you. Now, time always is moving. Past is past. We cannot change past. Future not yet come. So what kind of future? Much depend on present. So the present younger generation, you are the key people, you see, who create happier future. So please, the younger generation or these young students, and particularly Harvard University student, now please, you should not think just copy what happened. Or now new situation, so now new thinking, very necessary. So think more realistic. These ultimately much depend on the mental level. So please think more. And then I'm hoping this younger generation 21st century generation, and my generation, 20th century generation, create a lot of problem. Now, but for me, you see, I lost my own country and come to India as a refugee. So this country, over 1,000 years, we have very close link. And all our knowledge come from Indian master. So now our relation, like Indian Prime Minister, one is mentioned, land of Buddha. So we have something very historically very close link. So now here I live as a refugee, so no need formality. Very easy to discuss. So these knowledge, Indian master, as I mentioned earlier, even Buddha's own word, reject. So that kind of tradition, very logical, objectively. So I'm student of that tradition. So now, as a refugee in this country, stateless, so I have more opportunity to discuss these things. So I'm very happy, and particularly now today, the Harvard University's some students, some teachers, I very much sort of happy and feel proud. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Holiness.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On behalf of the Strong Cities Network, it is my absolute honor to welcome all of you to this extremely special event with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. My name is Sasha Havlicek. I'm the founder and CEO of the Institute for Strategic Dialogue. For 15 years, our extremely dedicated international team of practitioners, of data analysts, of policy specialists, of former extremists, of technologists, of educators, have worked to find and to deliver solutions to the rising tide of global hate and polarization, of disinformation and extremism in all of its forms. Having led research, policy, and action programs on every continent, we knew early on that effective and sustainable strategies to prevent these threats must be rooted within local communities. Cities are in so many ways the front line, and it was on this premise that we had the privilege of working with 25 global mayors and the US State Department to launch the Strong Cities Network at the UN General Assembly in 2015. The first endeavor to mount a truly international city-led response to polarization and extremism. Our network has now grown to nearly 150 governments, local governments, representing every major global region. To give you just a brief sense of what this has meant in practice, our teams have delivered training and capacity building to nearly 3,500 local practitioners around the world. Our members access best practice through the SCN online hub, and this includes guides and training modules for teachers, for city officials, and for civil society. We've established a local prevention infrastructure, that is, coordination bodies that unite city halls, civil society, educators, companies, faith leaders across the Middle East and Africa and the Balkans. First inspired by an exchange between Jordanian and Danish mayors and cities. And we've helped them deploy programs in areas ranging from de-radicalization and reintegration to communications and youth engagement. We're so proud of the work our Young City program is doing to put young people in the driving seat through dialogue with city leaders in places like Kenya, Lebanon, Senegal, Macedonia. But what, you might ask, has an organization dedicated to combating hate and extremism got to do with kindness and compassion? I have to say, I have seen firsthand the power of empathy and kindness to break down the othering mindset, which is so central to extremist ideologies. It is instrumental in bringing people out of these movements. We've seen the very real impact of kindness and compassionate leadership and programming, and been inspired by those that have chosen to lead in this way. Mayor Tate, former mayor of Anaheim in California, Mayor Fisher of Louisville, also president of the US Conference of Mayors, an important institution with which we are honored to partner today in hosting this event, to mention but a couple. You have both been such champions of this initiative, and more broadly, of a compassionate approach to leadership. I wanted to acknowledge you, along with the US State Department, in particular Mike Duffin here, for all your help and guidance on this event, and also to thank you for what you do for the Strong Cities Network writ large. COVID-19 has made greater and more challenging demands on local leaders than ever. Not only do cities face the brunt of a public health crisis of historic proportions and its economic and social fallout, but with the massive proliferation of disinformation, something that we've been tracking at the Institute on and offline, they also face a rise in hate incidents, anti-minority rhetoric, and civil unrest. These are difficult times everywhere, and so this event couldn't come at a more critical moment. We are so deeply grateful to His Holiness and his team for facilitating today's discussion. Your ongoing engagement with the Strong Cities Network, having kindly hosted a delegation of SCN mayors in India in 2018, has been a very genuine inspiration, and it has spurred action